Joining us now, he is the head coach of Marist, of course, the defending champions of the MAC with 2A's, winning that automatic bid last year, getting to the NCAA tournament. He's a former Yankee relief pitcher, also former wrestler. And aside, he's got a fascinating journey life, but he's a heck of a head coach right now. And he's got a team on top of the league and very in the middle of the big stretch. As we record this, they had just finished a doubleheader against Siena. I speak of our good friend Joe Ausanio joining us here on In the Circle on D1 Softball. Man, you have the most unique profile that we've ever had on the show, but it's good to have you back on.
Appreciate it, Eric. Thanks for having me.
All right, as we're recording this, you had just finished playing Siena in a very big, important doubleheader. You
Yep.
get a split. You lose a tight one-run game in the first game of this doubleheader on the road. Then you bounce back and run-ruled them in the second game. I know you wanted both games. We talked a little bit about that off there. I was following those games very closely because it's big in the standings, as we'll get to in a moment, about how tight the league is. But kind of your overall thoughts with how the doubleheader played out, plus the uniqueness on how the conference, you all play your conference games.
Yeah. So, today was obviously happy to come out of there with a split after losing a tough game. We lost 2-1 in the first game, and we had some chances, didn't get a timely hit when we needed it, and those are always tough. When you when you put yourself in positions to win and don't get it done. But in the second game, I thought our kids really had good approaches at the plate, and the pitcher that pitched against us, she's a fifth year senior, and she's been very tough on us in the past, and we hit 3 home runs off of her in 1 inning, and we chased her, and we haven't been able to do that against her in a while. And so I was just really pleased and proud of the effort we put forth in that second game, especially with our approaches at the plate. I don't know why I can't hear you, Eric.
Oh, I got you now. That's all
Yeah.
right. That was me. That's because I produce myself sometimes and I mute myself and I forget. But I was going to ask you about, do you feel that your team's got a target on their back? You're the defending champions. You won the automatic bid. As we record this after the Siena doubleheader in late Tuesday night, you're still on top of the league. Do you feel there's been a target this year? What's it been like this year?
100%. And I told the girls this year, the hunter has become the hunted. And, we are, in everybody's crosshairs. And, when we lose a game, teams, cheer as if, they beat Oklahoma. And that can be good and bad. It's good that you get the respect from the league that, they just beat a very good team. But sometimes the kids can get complacent and think they can just throw their gloves out on the field and win games. And unfortunately, games aren't won on paper, and you still have to get it done because our league has a ton of parity, and anybody in our league can beat anybody, and it doesn't matter 1 through 11. It does not matter. Anybody can beat anybody in our league.
You're 26-11 now as we talk. You won 29 games all of last year. So clearly you're a better team than even last year. Did winning that tournament and getting a taste of the NCAA tournament, did that almost raise the bar and the confidence from the returners?
Yeah, I think that they got that taste of what it's like to be there. And, the goal was to repeat. And otherwise, what are we doing if we're not trying to win this? And so, we really kind of got after it from day one, and played a very good fall. And then we did some different tournaments this year. You never know when you sign up for a tournament who's going to be there. Last year we had a very difficult spring break, where we played Texas, Iowa, Penn State, Illinois, South Florida twice, Lehigh twice. And just, I think that seasoned us, even though we only won 29 games last year, that really, made us better, taking a bunch of losses on spring break, and just knowing that, hey, listen, we played some really good teams, and we played some of those teams very tight. We lost a 1-run game to Iowa in extra innings. We lost a 2-run game to Illinois, and, played South Florida twice, very, very tough. So we were prepared for the conference tournament, and when we got to the conference tournament, we just kind of had all pistons running, and Kylie Myers stepped up for us when Callista Phippen, our number one pitcher, went down with a knee injury at the tournament, and we kind of just rode Kylie to the championship, and she was phenomenal.
You're an interesting stretch here. You just played Siena on the road here on a Tuesday. You're now
Yep.
going to host Lehigh, non-conference, a team that's undefeated in their league in the Patriot League. They were just in the NCAA's 2 years ago. They're going to be a big threat to Boston in the Patriot League there in that league. You're going to host them Saturday. Then
We
next
have to go
week,
back to Siena. We have to go back to Siena tomorrow for the third game of
that's
the.
right. And you got to go back to Seattle. Thank you for reminding me as we
Yeah.
record Wednesday night. That's just why your schedule, it's fat. Just explain the scheduling formula from a conference standpoint because it's fascinating to me. Like you said, you're playing Siena here. You're going to play Iona next weekend or next
Yep.
week during the week. It's not the traditional weekend conference series. Just explain this because this is a fascinating stretch for you.
So what has happened is in the past, our conference only did double headers. Nobody, uh, everybody played everybody. Now, the conference went to a 3 game series because we were one of the few conferences in the country that didn't do a 3 game series. So we decided to do a double header and then a single game. I know some of the conferences will do like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but we decided, just for expenses and just trying to keep have the opportunity to play as many games as possible, we did doing a double header or a single game. And you have 3 days to try to get those 3 games in, but one being a double header, the other being a single. Next year, there's going to be 2 more teams added to our conference. We don't have enough weekends to play everybody. So these midweek triple headers are the only way that we're able to try to get these games in. And obviously, in the Northeast, we're at the mercy of the weather and hope to get these games in.
For those that don't know, who are the two teams that will be joining the league next year?
So next year, Merrimack and Sacred Heart will be joining the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. And so we will be going from 11 to 13 teams.
Oh, man. Welcome. Everybody's growing in the leagues. It's unbelievable. How will that affect your scheduling, if at all?
So what they're going to do is, believe it or not, and there's been some arguments and disagreements with when we would start our conference play, but it looks as though conference play is going to start in mid-March next year here in the Northeast, which is obviously a crapshoot, and hopefully we will be able to get games in because one of the other things that we have now in our conference is we don't have enough days to make up games. So if you don't get your games in, they're gone. You don't play them.
Will you try to play everybody? Is it one of those things will be split up where you play certain teams? I mean, it's that's
I,
tight.
I, I believe it's going to go on a rotating
Okay,
schedule, and um, the schedule hasn't come out yet for next year.
sure,
So I'm
sure.
kind of anxious to see what it's going to look like because you have a couple of teams in our conference that their fields that they play on are multiple use fields. So, for instance, Canisius has men's and women's lacrosse, baseball, and softball that all use the same field. Manhattan has men's and women's lacrosse and softball. So there are teams in our league that have multi-use facilities.
Interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. We're gonna have to get you back next year on to see how it's going with the new look there. But let's talk about
That
your
sounds
team.
good.
Let's go about your team this year. I want to start with your offense. You're hitting over 300 as a team as we do the 313 on the year. Who are some of your leaders and standouts offensively? Certainly one that jumps out to me is McDonald, who, as we record this, has 12 homers, 47 RBIs. You got Haley with 7 homers, 36 RBIs. But you have others. It seems like you've got it pretty spread out. Just talk about your offense identity and some of the players that make it work.
Yeah, well, last year we did not have Maya McDonald. She was out for the year with a torn labrum. And what was fun was to win it without her and then getting her back. She's, one of the top players in our conference. And what she brings to the table is just a 5 tool player that, she can hit for average, she can hit for power, she can run. She feels well. She does everything well. And what I think has happened is with her coming back healthy and just kind of picking up where she left off 2 years ago, it's just made everybody around her better. And right now our top five, Peyton Pusey, in the leadoff spot, Maya hitting second. We have Maddie Pleasance, who was the conference player of the year last year, hitting third. We have Haley R., who was the rookie of the year last year, hitting fourth. And we have Alyssa Grupp hitting fifth right now. And, all five of those right now are hitting in the high 300s, low 400s. And, so right now, we're hoping that the bottom of that lineup can just kind of pick up where we left off. We picked up a transfer from Canisius last year, Sophia Recrosio, who's hitting over 300. She's hitting in the number 9 spot to turn over that lineup as much as we can.
Let's talk about your pitching staff a little bit. You got a staff with an ERA of 2.71. Kylie Myers, 1.99 ERA as we do this, 11-5 on the season. You got Anna with 12 wins. Just tell me your staff. You've got certainly at least 3 arms you've used on a consistent basis and have started games for you.
Yeah. Kylie, like I said earlier, she was the one who kind of pitched us to the conference championship last year when Callista went down. And then, Anna Sidlowski, she's a freshman who has just stepped right in, and, she has exceeded our expectations. She's been phenomenal for us this year. Maddie Pleasance has thrown for us, and, she's done a great job. She's, been bit by some bad luck. She threw some really good games and had some, tough losses. And then we picked up another transfer, Isabella Malazzo, from St. Rose, who canceled their program, and they're playing they're closing their school. So this is their last year of sports, and so she decided to leave and come to us. So she was eligible right away because they closed the school. And then we also have the Connecticut Gatorade Player of the Year, Stella Blanchard, who hasn't thrown a pitch for us, who has been injured and is actually going to be having surgery on her elbow in a few weeks. But if we had her, we would be in really good shape.
Oh, can you wonder sometimes, man, if we could just be healthy one
Yeah.
year, have everything, all the pieces together, that would be kind of fascinating, right? Like it's kind of, but at the same time, you've overcome it, which speaks volumes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Let's take me back to last year in that conference tournament. You got through the top 2 seeds in that tournament, including Canisius, who was the regular season champion. Take me through that journey in that tournament and that feeling of getting that automatic bid.
Yeah. Our first game was a really tough game against Iona, who, they're always tough. And, they had a really, one of the best pitchers in the conference that the conference has ever seen, a kid named Cara Zazzaro. And we won that game 1-0. And that was a game that I think set the tone for the rest of the tournament. And then the next game was against the Mount, which, they had been playing well, the entire year. They had a bunch of really good fifth-year kids. We ended up beating them, and that was the game where Callista, hurt her knee again and, retore her ACL celebrating after the win. So that was tough. And then Kylie just stepped up, and she beat Canisius back-to-back days. And, we went 4-0 and ran the table. And next thing you know, we're at the selection show watching where we were going to end up. And it was just so great to be able to go to Florida State. I mean, they just did a phenomenal job hosting. And from top to bottom, it was just such a great experience for our kids. And would love to go somewhere like that again this year.
When you what's that feeling like when you hosted that trophy and you were conference champions?
I think what happens, honestly, Eric, is you just reflect back on the entire year and all the work that you put in. And when I say all the work, that goes from recruiting to the fall season, and the weight room, the classroom work that goes in, the fact that these kids just do such a phenomenal job. I mean, I think I'm more proud of the fact that we had a 3.71 team GPA last year. I mean, something like that is just something you can really hang your hat on, knowing that not only are you recruiting quality athletes, but you're recruiting quality kids who understand that they're there to go to school first and foremost. And a lot of schools it's softball first, but here at Marist it's academics first, and then using softball to get a great education.
You mentioned going to Tallahassee. We're set there with Florida State. Gave them a game for a while. I think you kind of pulled away late. but it was right there. And then you were really right there. You're a base hit away from perhaps eliminating South Carolina in that game on Saturday. So you represented very well. And I remember I spoke to you there from Tallahassee. You were pleased with the effort and how they perform, even though you didn't get any offense, but you're facing the elite here.
Yeah.
What was that like? Now that you reflected on it, to be there, and not only be there, but like I said, you put a scare into South Carolina. You almost had them beat there with, again, a base hit makes the difference there. And even FSU, you were in there until obviously they had the one big inning.
Yeah, we did. We played FSU twice, or FSU very tough for 4.5 innings. And then, obviously, their hitters were just so good, and they finally, caught up to our pitching. But the next day against South Carolina, for me, that was probably my most proud moment because it's easy to kind of fold up shop. Obviously we're there with three top 30 teams. It was us, South Carolina, Florida State, and UCF, who, they were all in the top 30. And South Carolina had just come off a great SEC tournament. And Donnie Goldberg throwing 75 miles an hour. My kids are like, hey, coach. I said, well, listen, hopefully you run into it. And I think the fact that, even South Carolina and their coaching staff just came up to me and, they were just, they're very proud of our team and the effort that they put forth. And like you said, I think we did put a scare in them. But moreover, I think that, we just proved that, our conference is good. And, any team in our conference could represent this conference well. And to be able to compete against just a star-studded SEC lineup. And, like you said, we had chances in that game. We had kids in scoring position multiple times in the late innings. And I think the best part was, Maddie Pleasance, who was the player of the year. I don't know if you remember, I think it was in the 5th or 6th inning. She flew out and the outfielder made a great play jumping up against the wall. Not quite robbing her of a home run, but it was inches away from being a home run. And, that could have easily been a turning point in that game. So the fact that they had to bring Donnie in to close it out, that for me was, a testament to, hey, listen, they were not going to mess around with us. They took us seriously.
No, well said. I was about to say, they brought in Donnie Goldborn to finish this game against you because they just knew they couldn't hit your pitching. Because they had to play right after that against UCF, the fact they used their best arm against you is the highest compliment I could imagine, and certainly something that some of your players may not forget. Like you mentioned, 75 miles, she throws hard, man. That's hard.
Yeah, a very talented young lady. Yeah.
What will you take from that regional if you get back there this year or whenever? What's one thing that you're going to remind yourself that you didn't know going in, that okay, if I'm in the next time I'm in the regional, I'm going to remember this particular part, having gone through it now?
I think what's funny, Eric, is you had said something to me before we went on air about like the pitch clock and all of the things that have been added to softball. So, for instance, our conference, we don't have instant replay. We don't really use it. I don't have a big pitch clock with giant numbers. We have the umpires with a little timer on their belts. So, I think going into it, I would be better prepared for instant replay and making sure that I know exactly what plays I'm going to be able to challenge. We had a call that went against us at Florida State that one of their batter runners hit a ball to our first baseman. Our first baseman went to tag her, and she ran towards the dugout and around her. And I challenged the call because I thought she was out of the baseline. It ended up going against us. But when I sent that out to some umpires I knew, they all agreed with me that she should have been called out. And I still, trying to find out why, she wasn't. But hopefully, if anything, maybe that was a learning or teaching moment for the umpires, that they could use that as maybe a teaching video that, hey, listen, this is something that happened in the regionals, and we can't let this happen again because, this is not the way the game's supposed to be played.
If it makes you feel any better, there's coaches in the power leagues that have instant replay and all this, and they're still trying to figure it out. Even to this day, they've added more rules to it where now you could challenge whether a runner left early or not, which has become a hot topic at the level. You don't have to deal with that, at least through the regular season, but you may have to if you go to the regional. To your point, which is so fascinating, where we are as a sport, where we still have different rules for certain conferences versus others, and then everybody has to kind of abide by the postseason rules.
Yeah, you have the have and the have-nots, and even the strike zones are different. The SEC strike zone is way different than the MAC strike zone, and that was one of my arguments one time with an umpire. I went up to the umpire and I asked him. I said, "Do you call the infield fly rule?" He was like, "What?" I said, "Do you call the infield fly rule?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, why do you call the infield fly rule?" He said, "Because it's a rule in the book." I said, "Well, good, because on page 109 and 110, there's a clear diagram of the strike zone. It's in the book as the rule. It's not arbitrary, but none of you want to call it." So it's one of those things where, don't put it in there if you're not going to call it. And, I feel like the SEC and some of the Power Fives, they don't call that strike zone as it sits in the book. And you can see that strike zone is much more liberal than what they are calling. And when you get to those tournaments and you're not getting those pitches that you normally get, listen, if you have to come in with some of those hitters, because they're not calling those strikes, it makes it really tough on schools like us to be able to compete.
But is that like a haves have not to, or is that just an issue with the sport in general? Because I would argue in baseball we've had the same problem with that inconsistent strike zones where certain
Yeah,
umpires, and you know this, you played in the big leagues, for example. I'm going to use Major League Baseball as an example. Every umpire has a reputation. Oh, this one
yeah.
likes the high strike zone. This one doesn't. And I'm thinking to myself, isn't the strike zone supposed to be by the book? Why does every umpire have their own style of how to call balls and strikes? And it's been allowed, and I feel like that is it's gone down from baseball to college baseball to softball. I think that's why we're in where we're in.
Yeah, it's funny too because I started to laugh when you were talking about Major League Baseball umpires. One of the funniest stories I had when I was playing, I was pitching in Toronto against the Blue Jays, and I'm facing Paul Molitor, and Paul Molitor's Hall of Famer and probably one of the better hitters that's ever played the game. And I remember having Paul Molitor down 0-2, and I threw what I thought were three really good pitches that the umpire just called balls. And I'm like, man, where's that? And then the fourth pitch, it was a 3-2 count. I threw a fastball that I thought was strike three. I started walking off the mound, and I remember the umpire was Al Clark at the time, and ended up walking Paul, and then got out of the inning. And so on my way to the dugout, Al's kind of walking towards me as I'm walking towards the dugout. I'm like, Al, where are those pitches to Molitor? He's like, Joe, that's Paul Molitor. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And I said, Al, if you give me one of those pitches, I could get to the Hall of Fame too. And I, I kept walking, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing, like you said. And then I started to think about, Angel Hernandez, who has like his own cult following of how bad of an umpire he is and his missed calls, and you know, it's just kind of crazy how the umpiring isn't more universal, and because when you think about it, the basketball tournament, foul's a foul. It doesn't matter. In my opinion, if you throw a strike, it should be called a strike, and it shouldn't be arbitrary.
100% agree. And I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever get to that point. Some people have brought up robot umps. I know they've experimented with that in the minor leagues. Is that something that would even interest you in generally baseball or softball, robot umps? Or do you think this is just going to be, you have to have the human element there?
I don't think you'll see that in collegiate sports, not anytime soon anyway. I don't think that they're quite there yet. Robo umps. I did see the thing with the TrackMan where they can challenge the umpire, or the hitter can actually challenge, the pitch, and it's kind of instant feedback of whether or not it's a strike. But I don't know if every college program is going to be able to afford a $50,000 TrackMan,
Right, right.
for every stadium.
No, that's very true. Very true. What softball? The big thing this year is they had a pitch clock 20 seconds. I know you haven't had to use that, but you've seen Major League Baseball go to it. College softball's going to it. You were a pitcher. Is that something that would have affected you? Is that something that would have not a big deal? What's your reaction to a pitch clock now for pitchers?
I always like to work fast, so I don't think it would have ever affected me. I think you have some of those pitchers who just kind of walk around and I understand the intent of the rule. I just don't know if they really thought it out completely when they decided to implement it.
As I talk to you, I'm just glaring at your Yankee jersey, folks. Not too many people can come on the show and have their Yankee jersey on the background. I think that's a first in the history of In the Circle. It's a very nice jersey. For those that may not know your story,
Yeah.
because we talked a lot about this at length the first time you came on. We're not going to spend as much time on it, but just cliff notes on your Major League Baseball career with the
Yeah.
Yankees and how you that translated later to becoming the college head coach in softball.
So, I was originally drafted out of high school by the Atlanta Braves. I didn't sign with them. I ended up going to Jacksonville University in Jacksonville, Florida. Played baseball there, and then I was redrafted again my senior year by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Spent 5 years in the minors with the Pirates, but I was in big league camp twice with the Pirates. So that's where I got to see Barry Bonds and play with Barry and all those guys, and just got to see how talented of a player he was. I get in arguments all the time with people about who the greatest baseball player of all time was. Steroids or not, Barry Bonds was, to me, just the epitome of the best player. I mean, he could do everything well. He could run, he could hit for power, had a good arm. He was a gold glove, ran like a deer. He was just an incredible athlete. And one of the nicest people, treated me great as a rookie, always was cordial. I remember I just had my first son, and I brought him into the locker room after a game, and Barry looked at me and says, "Give me that kid." And next thing I know, he takes my son, and I'm standing there. And next thing I know, my son starts yanking on Barry's gold chains around his neck. And I'm thinking, good Lord, if he breaks one of these chains, that's more than what I make in a year. So I ran up to Barry and said, "Give me this kid. I can't deal with this anymore. The stress is killing me." And he started laughing and gave it back. But and then I was Rule 5 drafted by the Montreal Expos, now the Washington Nationals. And then I got Rule 5 drafted by the Yankees. One of the Expos, former Expos coaches, said to the Yankees, "Hey, you need to get this guy." I ended up going to AAA Columbus to start the year, pitched pretty well. And then I was really fortunate that Matt Noakes, who was a big league catcher for years, he came down on a minor league rehab assignment, and I closed a couple of games out in Columbus and pitched really well. And he came up to me, he goes, "Man, you could really help us in the big leagues." I said, "Well, when you get back there, can you say something to somebody and maybe help a brother out here?" And got the call during the All-Star break, and I got to pitch a full month in the big leagues in '94. And then I don't know how old you are, if you remember or not, but in '94, that was the year
The
of the
strike
strike.
year. Yeah, I remember that very well.
I was there for a year, for a month, and I remember I actually got the loss at Yankee Stadium against the Blue Jays, and then everybody was like, "Hey, I'll see you in a couple of weeks." And the Yankees actually sent me back down to the minors because I had options, so I could keep pitching where all the major leaguers went on strike. And then next thing you know, the season was canceled, and got back to '95, and that's when I got to play with Jeter, Mariano, Andy Pettitte, Jorge Posada, and all those guys.
It's a great run. That 94 Yankee team was on track to make the playoffs for the first time since 1981. And at that time, it looked like we were headed for maybe a Yankees Expos World Series, because the Expos, who was the big loser of all that, had the best record in baseball, and
Yeah.
they never recovered from that to the
Nope.
point where the league folded. So it's wild there. Buck Showalter was your manager.
That's
I'm
right.
curious, did you take some things from Buck Showalter that you apply to your head coaching skills now?
Believe it or not, Eric, I've taken stuff from every manager I have ever played for. I have kind of morphed into how I like to run things. And there were certain managers that I played for. I actually just had this conversation the other day with somebody that I actually played for a bunch of managers that managed in the big leagues. I had Bobby Valentine, I had Buck Showalter, I had Jim Tracy, I had Terry Collins. So I had a lot of guys who I got to watch up close and personal, and really kind of understand the way they did things. And I always said, "Man, I understand that. I like that." And we do a lot of stuff at Marist. It's a lot of baseball stuff, but we've been successful with it because a lot of teams aren't really prepared for it when we do it.
So you play your baseball, eventually you retire. How do you get into coaching and specifically softball?
It kind of happened by accident. So I was, believe it or not, I was at a casino at a blackjack table and just making small talk with somebody. And somebody said, "Hey, where are you from?" I said where I was from. And the guy looked at me and goes, "Hey, have you ever considered being an umpire?" I said, no. I said, I still give pitching lessons, and I wouldn't want to be umpiring and have a kid come into the game, and next thing I know, I'm have to call balls and strikes for him. He goes, "No, I'm talking about softball." I was like, "Softball? Why would I want to umpire softball?" He goes, "Oh no, the games are great. You get paid the same amount as you do for baseball, and it's half the time." And I thought about it. I was like, "Oh, you know what? I'll give it a whirl." And so I kind of got into softball as an umpire. But I also worked for a minor league baseball team, the Hudson Valley Renegades, which was a Tampa Bay Ray affiliate here in New York. And we would always host the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference baseball tournament. We would always host it because, it was a great stadium to host it. And so I became friendly with the Marist staff and the athletic director, Tim Murray. And, he came up to me one day, it was back in like 2007. He said, "Hey, I just hired a new young head coach for softball." He goes, "I'd love for you to come on board and mentor her and, be part of the staff." And I tried it once, and it kind of didn't work out well for me. But it turned out that I want to say it was August of 2008, like late August, athletic director from Marist, Tim Murray, called me and said, "Hey, my head coach just took a new job. And right now I have nobody to do it. Can you get me through the fall season until I can hire somebody?" And I've been there ever since, Eric. It's kind of weird how it happened. And I went into his office in October. And I said, "Hey, we don't have any players coming in next year. We should probably try to recruit some kids." So he's like, "Okay, go take the exam and go recruit." And that recruiting class, uh, when they became seniors, won our first MAC championship for head coach. So, and I've just been kind of building ever since.
That's unbelievable. And I know when I asked you the last time you were on, because I asked her, "Hey, would you want to coach in baseball, whether it be minor leagues, maybe college, etc." You said no. You're happy with softball. You're hooked on this now.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. What I love about the girls and the team is, they're sponges. They want to learn. Sometimes boys, they think they know everything, and they're hard to get through. And but the girls, they really want to learn, and they want feedback. And I think that's one of the things that I really love. Sometimes they drive me crazy, but at the end of the day, I think that they respect where I came from. And even though sometimes the things that we do, they don't quite understand until they see it work. And they're like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. That does work." And then they have to listen to me kind of gloat a little bit because, they like to give it to me when it doesn't work. I promise you.
Oh, everybody does. Trust me, I hear about it when I get a pick wrong. I understand that feeling very well. Now, throughout during that journey that you were talking about, where you were working, you also were way back in the day did a little independent wrestling
Yeah.
as well. Explain that to the audience. May not be. We talked again at length about that in the last episode, but just kind
Yeah.
of cliff notes. You actually did professional wrestling on the side as well while you were trying to figure out the whole coaching landscape and
Oh
all the
no.
other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, well, while I was working for the minor league team, the general manager came into my office one day with a wrestling promoter and said, "Hey, we're going to do a wrestling show at the stadium." I'm like, "Oh, that's a brilliant idea. Let's do it. That's great." And they're standing there in the doorway, and I'm like, "What's going on?" They're like, "We want you to wrestle." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to wrestle." I mean, I was, 45 years old, 46 years old. I said, "This is not a career change for me." And they left, and no lie, Eric, about 5 minutes later, they walk back. They think, "We think it's a really good idea if you wrestle." And the promoter says, "Listen, we'll protect you. You can go in, you can put a headlock on somebody. We'll put you in a tag team match, and you tag out and get." And I said to him, I said, "If I'm going to do this, I'm going all the way, and I want to train. I want to do it correctly. I'm not going to just do this, so I want to make sure that we are going to do this correct, and I want to not embarrass myself." And I went and I trained for a good 2.5 months before the show. And I was originally supposed to be a tag team partner with Jerry the King Lawler. And I don't know if you remember this, but Jerry had a heart attack on national television.
Yep. And the
And
commentating, yeah, Michael Cole there in a Raw.
on a Raw episode. And I said, "Oh my God, that was," and this was like 2 weeks before the event. And I remember saying, well, there goes my wrestling career. And then the promoter called me and said, hey, I have a replacement for you, and it's going to be Goldust. And I said, oh, that's great. So my tag team partner went from Jerry the King Lawler to Goldust. And we fought Luke Robinson and Romeo Rosselli in a tag match. And if you haven't seen it, Eric, it is absolutely epic. I will send you the video of it. We did some stuff. Romeo came up with some stuff, and even Dustin was looking at it like, "What are you doing?" But looking back on it now, we made history with some of the stuff that we did. We did a skit where I actually pitched against Romeo in the ring. It was absolutely hysterical. If you haven't seen it, you are going to die laughing.
That was about a decade ago.
Yep.
Because I remember specifically that Raw that you're referring to, where Jerry Lawler had
Yep.
a legit heart attack to the point where he almost died.
That's right.
And that was, I believe, in Canada, because I remember CM Punk, who I'm wearing the shirt as I'm doing the interview,
Yeah.
was in a feuding with Lawler during that time frame, and Bret Hart was there, and Cena, and all that. And then you mentioned Goldust. For those that don't know, that's Dustin Rhodes, the son of the late Dusty Rhodes, and the brother of Cody Rhodes, who's obviously all over the news now as the new WWE champion, and was on the Today Show, just won WrestleMania against Roman Reigns. So it's kind of ironic that had to kind of get a reaction out of you. You wrestled a tag team partner with one of the Rhodes family members, which is
Yep.
that in itself is amazing. And here we are this weekend making history as the first Rhodes to ever win a WWE title.
And still to this day, Dustin still follows our Marist softball Twitter account. And because that was the only one I had at the time. And that was before Twitter kind of really blew up. And he's been phenomenal. What a great person to be able to work with. And he had some struggles with life and some trials and tribulations, and he came through it, and he came out on the good side. And I'm just really proud to say that I know him, and just a phenomenal family.
Yeah, he's working at All Elite Wrestling. He was in a suite in Philadelphia, not too far away, to watch his brother win that WWE Universal title, the first in the Rhodes family. That was a big storyline, finished the story
Yep.
deal. So that's pretty sweet. So I will leave you with this last question. What is this Marist team in 2024 as you move towards the next month here? Next thing you know, the conference tournament get going. What do you have to do to finish your story this season in the way you want it to be finished?
Honestly, I'm excited for our conference, Eric. I love the parity in our conference, and the fact that any team in our conference can beat any other team. I think for me to finish the story is to uh, treat every team like they're Oklahoma. And if we do that and we come out and play our game and be as prepared as we try to be all the time, then hopefully the story can write itself.
Is this the deepest you ever seen the league as far as depth?
Yeah, I think the league is just good across the board, and uh, when you think about Northeast schools, you don't think powerhouse softball. You just don't. And I think that it's a testament to the coaches in our conference who are just really doing a good job of recruiting good players. And the challenge now, honestly, is just to try to keep them. With the transfer portal and NIL deals. We don't have NIL deals at Marist, but what we do have is we have a great education. We have a campus in Florence, Italy, that we allow our kids to, study abroad as part of their scholarship, and just try to do the right things by the kids. And my recruiting spiel is the same to every one of them. I want two things to happen when they graduate. I want to be the first reference on their resume, and I want to be invited to their weddings. And I'm not necessarily going to go to their weddings, but if I get the invitation, then that tells me that I made a difference in their life. And right now my wife gets mad at me because we keep getting all these wedding invitations and we can't afford to go to them all. So I'll take that as a good thing.
That's a good positive. Trust me, I know that feeling very well. Well, I appreciate you coming on with us. You're in the middle of a big series. But I really appreciate you coming on because I wanted to get you on at some point this season, and I thought this was the perfect time. I thought of you there with WrestleMania just concluding as both of us being a wrestling guy, but more importantly, how great your season is going to this point, and you got a lot of big games coming ahead, and I wanted to kind of get the word out about not about your program to most of the audience. So thanks for doing this during this time period. Always enjoy talking to you. I'm sure we'll do it again down the road, but good luck the rest of the season.
I look forward to it, and thanks for having me.